The sky was clear, but the silence was broken by a sudden roar. The ground shook, and the earth seemed to tremble as something massive fell from the heavens. A flash of light lit up the horizon, and the sound of metal tearing through the air echoed across the desert. It was a spaceship, a huge silver craft, speeding down from the sky. Out of control. Jack, an ex-soldier stranded in this desolate, war-torn world, was miles away when he first heard the crash. He had been wandering the empty landscape for days, trying to find shelter, food, and any hope of survival. This land was unforgiving, a place where nothing could grow, and no one came to help. His boots sank into the cracked earth as he walked, lost in thought. When the explosion shook him from his trance, he turned and stared in the direction of the explosion, his heart pounding. The sound had been deafening, but the sky was now oddly silent. His eyes scanned the horizon, searching for any sign of life. Jack was no stranger to danger. He had fought in wars, seen things that would haunt most people forever. But this was different. Something told him he had to see this with his own eyes. With no time to waste, Jack broke into a sprint, his instincts kicking in. His military training had taught him to react quickly, to keep moving, even when danger was close. The desert stretched out in front of him, but he kept running, adrenaline surging through his veins. As he neared the crash site, he saw a column of smoke rising into the sky. It was coming from a valley up ahead. He pushed harder, determined to reach it. The wreckage was scattered across the valley floor. Parts of the ship were twisted and burned, lying in heaps of broken metal and fire. Jack slowed his pace as he reached the edge of the site, scanning for any survivors. The air was thick with the smell of burning fuel and scorched earth. He cautiously stepped forward, his boots crunching against the debris beneath him. The silence was eerie. He didn't know what he was expecting, but what he found was beyond anything he could have imagined. Among the burning wreckage, he saw her. At first, Jack thought she was just another piece of the wreckage, another lifeless body. But then he saw her move. A figure unlike anything he had ever seen before shifted among the debris. She was kneeling, her body covered in blood, her face hidden beneath a hooded cloak. She looked human, but there was something off about her. Her skin was a strange shade of green, unlike anything he had ever encountered. Her hair, long and white, seemed to glow under the dying light of the fire. For a moment, Jack froze. His heart raced, and his mind struggled to process what he was seeing. This was no ordinary person. She was alien. Her hand reached out, trembling, as she made a soft noise like a whisper in the wind. Jack felt an odd pull in his chest, a sense of urgency. Something was wrong. She was hurt. She needed help. "Hey!" Jack called out, his voice rough from the dust in the air. "Are you all right?" The alien woman didn't respond at first. She just sat there, her head down, her body limp. Jack hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do. Should he approach her? Was she dangerous? His military training warned him to stay on alert, but something about her vulnerability stopped him in his tracks. As if sensing his hesitation, the woman slowly looked up. Her eyes were deep, dark, and filled with pain. She stared at Jack, her gaze intense, as if she could see straight through him. She opened her mouth, but no words came out, only a faint, breathy cry of desperation. She was begging for something, begging for help. Jack knelt down a few feet away from her, still unsure. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said, his voice softer now. "I'll help you." She seemed to understand. Slowly, she reached her hand towards him, her fingers trembling. Jack swallowed hard. His mind was still racing. What was this creature? Was she a friend or foe? But her pleading look was impossible to ignore. He didn't think. He just acted. He reached out and took her hand, helping her to her feet. She was light, fragile even, her body almost weightless as he guided her through the wreckage. "You can trust me," Jack said, trying to reassure her, though he wasn't sure if he believed his own words. She was unlike anything he had ever encountered, and yet, he couldn't leave her here. The alien woman swayed as she stood, her legs unsteady, but she seemed to gather enough strength to move. Her gaze never left Jack's face, as if searching for something in him, something she didn't understand. Jack took a step forward, his instincts telling him that helping her was the right thing to do. But at the same time, a new thought began to gnaw at him. What if she wasn't just a victim in need of rescue? What if she had a hidden agenda? What if helping her led to something far worse than he could imagine? But there was no turning back. Now, as the sky grew darker, Jack and the alien woman walked into the unknown, leaving the wreckage behind, with Jack's heart pounding in his chest. The desert was vast, and the night was closing in, but something told him that this was only the beginning. The wind howled across the barren desert, its cold bite sharp against Jack's skin as he and the alien woman moved slowly across the cracked earth. The wreckage of the spaceship was far behind them now, but Jack's mind still reeled from what had just happened. He had never seen anything like her before. Every step he took, he felt the weight of her presence beside him, strange and unfamiliar, but somehow undeniably real. She was silent as they walked, her hand loosely gripping his arm. Jack could feel her delicate fingers tremble, though whether from weakness or fear, he wasn't sure. Her once glowing white hair, now disheveled and dirty, fell in tangled strands around her face. She didn't speak a word, but her gaze never left him. Her eyes, dark, almost black, seemed to study him with an intensity that made him uneasy. It wasn't just the curiosity of a stranger. It was something deeper, as if she was trying to understand him on a level that went beyond mere observation. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of silence, the alien woman stopped. Her legs buckled slightly, and she collapsed to her knees on the sand, her face twisting in pain. Jack rushed to her side, his heart pounding. "Hey," he said, kneeling beside her. "Are you okay? What's happening?" She didn't respond immediately, her breaths shallow and strained. Her green skin, once vibrant, now appeared pallid and sickly under the dimming light of the desert sunset. Jack felt panic begin to rise in his chest. She couldn't die out. Here, not like this. He had no idea what she was, but she was the only living thing he had seen in days. The woman looked up at him, her lips barely moving as she spoke, her voice weak but filled with urgency. "Help me, ... she whispered, the words barely escaping her mouth. Jack froze. She was begging for help. Something in her voice was raw, desperate, and unmistakably human. But what kind of creature begged like this? "What happened to you?" Jack asked, his voice softer now as he gently helped her back onto her feet. The alien's eyes flickered with pain, and for the first time, Jack saw a flash of vulnerability in her otherwise imposing demeanor. She lifted her hand, her fingers trembling, and pointed weakly toward the horizon. "They are coming," she said in a voice barely above a whisper. "You must take me far away. They will find me, and they will kill you too." Jack's brow furrowed. "Who's coming? Who's after you?" She shook her head slowly, her expression grim. "The hunters. They ... they are relentless. They will not stop until I am dead." Jack took a deep breath, trying to make sense of what was happening. This wasn't just an alien war. This was something far more personal. He could feel the weight of her plea, the urgency in her eyes. She wasn't just asking for help, she was warning him. "Why me?" Jack asked, his voice tinged with confusion. "Why not anyone else? Why me?" The alien woman's lips quivered, and she closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering the strength to speak. "Because," she began, her voice still weak, "you are the only one who can save us." Jack blinked. "Us? What do you mean, us? Who are you?" Her gaze hardened slightly, but there was a sadness in it. "I am not just any warrior. I am the last of my kind, My people were slaughtered in a war that you cannot even begin to understand. I am the key to their survival, and to the survival of this planet." Jack's mind raced, trying to piece together the fragments of her words. A war? A dying species? This was all too much to process. "I don't even know who you are," Jack said, his frustration creeping into his voice. "How can I save you if I don't know what's going on? What do you want from me?" She looked at him with a mix of desperation and gratitude, as though she knew how impossible this request was, yet she still had no choice but to make it. "I can explain everything," she said, her voice still weak but firm. "But I need you to trust me. We do not have much time. They will be here soon. Please, I beg of you, take me to safety, and I will explain everything. You have no idea what is at stake, and neither do I." Her words hung in the air between them, the weight of her plea pressing down on Jack like a heavy stone. The fear in her eyes was genuine. Jack could see that she was terrified, not just of the enemy that was coming, but of something much larger, something that she had to do. Jack felt the old soldier's instincts kick in, the need to protect, to survive. His mind raced with questions, but in the end, one thing stood out more than the rest. He couldn't leave her here. Not after what she had just said. "All right," he said, his voice steady despite the whirlwind of thoughts in his mind. "I'll help you, but you have to tell me everything. No more secrets." The alien warrior nodded weakly, and Jack helped her to her feet once again. He could feel the weight of the decision bearing down on him. He didn't know who she was, or what kind of danger he was about to get into, but one thing was clear. There was no going back now. They would have to survive together, or they both would fall. The sun had long disappeared beneath the horizon, leaving the world shrouded in darkness. The only light now came from the flickering stars above, and the faint glow from the wreckage of the spaceship far behind them. Jack moved quickly, his mind still racing with the strange revelation the alien warrior had just shared. Her name was Vera, and she was the last survivor of a race called the Sreef beings who had once ruled the galaxy, only to be hunted down and nearly eradicated by a ruthless enemy. Her people were now scattered to the winds, and she was all that remained. Jack didn't understand it all, but he could see the weight of her words in her eyes. She wasn't just a warrior. She was a symbol of survival itself, carrying the fate of an entire species on her shoulders. And now, Jack was tangled in her survival, whether he liked it or not. As they moved through the night, Jack kept his senses sharp, aware of every rustling in the wind, every shadow that moved. Vera was beside him, moving with surprising speed despite her injuries, but he could tell she was weakening. The blood on her clothes was drying, and her breath came in shallow gasps. Jack kept a steady grip on her arm, guiding her as they walked. But he knew they couldn't keep up this pace for long. "Where exactly are we going?" Jack asked, his voice low and steady, trying not to break the silence that had settled between them. Vera's eyes flickered toward him, her face hardening. "We need to reach the safe zone," she said, her voice hoarse. "It's an old base my people used to hide in. It should be far enough away from the wreckage, but we have to move quickly." Jack nodded, even though he had no idea where this safe zone was or what it would offer. But if Vera thought it was their best chance, he would trust her for now. They kept moving, weaving through the dark landscape. The air was cold, and the ground was rough, with jagged rocks scattered about. The desert felt alive with danger, but there was something more pressing on Jack's mind. The thought of the enemies chasing them lingered like a shadow in his mind. Vera seemed to sense his unease. She turned to him, her face taut with determination. "They are already tracking us," she said quietly. "We don't have much time. If we don't get to the base within the next few hours, they'll find us. They always find us." Jack felt a shiver run down his spine. "Who are they?" "Hunters," she said simply. "Relentless and merciless. They hunt anything that's different from them, and they will stop at nothing to destroy me. The word hunters echoed in Jack's mind. Whoever they weren't just some rogue group. Vera's fear was real, and that made Jack's instincts flare with warning. Suddenly, a faint noise echoed through the night, a distant sound, almost like a whisper in the wind. Jack stopped, his hand instinctively reaching for the weapon at his side. His heart raced as he scanned the surroundings, his senses heightened. "Did you hear that?" he asked, his voice low but urgent. Vera stiffened beside him, her eyes scanning the dark horizon. Her breath hitched, and she quickly grabbed his arm. "They've found us. They're close." Jack's blood ran cold. The desert that had once seemed vast and empty now felt like a trap, closing in around them. Vera pulled away from him, her face set with a quiet resolve. "We need to run, now." Without another word, she broke into a sprint, her pace faster than Jack expected. He cursed under his breath, pushing himself to catch up. They ran, the night air rushing past them as Jack's heart hammered in his chest. His military training had prepared him for many things, but this was unlike anything he'd ever faced. Behind them, the ground began to rumble, and the faint sound of engines reached Jack's ears. There were vehicles chasing them, powerful. Machines designed for speed and destruction. Jack's pulse quickened. They were closing in fast. "We have to get to the base." Vera yelled over her shoulder, her voice sharp with urgency. "If we don't, we won't make it." Jack glanced back for a split second, and in that brief moment, he saw the glow of headlights cutting through the darkness, spearheading the pursuit. The hunters were on them. There was no more time. They raced through the rocky terrain, jumping over obstacles, ducking beneath low-hanging branches. The desert felt like it was alive, the night closing in tighter as they ran for their lives. Jack could hear the vehicles behind them, growing louder with each passing second. His lungs burned, but there was no time to slow down. He could see the faint outline of a structure ahead, a shadow against the darkened sky. The safe zone, but the ground beneath them shook, and the sound of engines roared closer. They were almost there, but would they make it in time? "Almost there," Vera panted, her voice strained. She glanced at Jack, her face hardening with determination. "Keep going. We can't stop now." The sound of the hunters' engines reached a deafening volume, the chase closing in. Jack gritted his teeth and pushed his body to its limits. They were so close, too close to fail. With one final burst of energy, Jack and Vera reached the base. But the ground shook violently, and the roar of engines told them that the hunters were right behind them. Jack dove into the shadows, pulling Vera down with him as they collapsed behind the cover of the old structure. They were safe, for now, but the chase was far from over. The hunters would not stop until they had what they wanted. And Jack, now fully aware of the dangers ahead, understood one thing with chilling clarity. Survival in this world would mean trusting an alien warrior who carried the weight of an entire dying species on her shoulders. And it would mean facing an enemy unlike anything he had ever imagined. The cold stone walls of the hidden base offered a brief respite from the relentless chase, but Jack knew the danger wasn't over. The doors slammed shut behind them with a heavy, echoing thud, and the air inside felt thick and stale. The quiet hum of old, forgotten technology filled the space, and dust swirled in the dim light filtering through cracked windows. Vera collapsed against the nearest wall, her chest heaving, but the moment the door closed, she relaxed slightly. Jack stood beside her, his hand still gripped tightly around his weapon, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. They were safe for the moment, but the secrets she had hinted at were still clouding his mind. Vera's eyes fluttered shut as she leaned back against the cold wall, her breath coming slower now. But Jack could see the tension in her shoulders, the weight of the world pressing down on her. There was something more she wasn't telling him, something he needed to understand if he was going to survive this. "Why don't you tell me everything?" Jack said, breaking the silence. His voice was softer now, the urgency from before replaced with the need for answers. Who are these hunters? And why did you say you're the key to saving your people? What does that mean? Vera's eyes opened slowly, and she met Jack's gaze with a quiet intensity. For a moment, she didn't speak, as though weighing the choice to reveal what was hidden inside her. Then, with a deep, reluctant sigh, she began to explain. "The Sreath," she said, her voice distant, as if recalling memories long buried. "We were once a powerful race, the rulers of a galaxy. We weren't just warriors. We were scientists, engineers, philosophers. Our people mastered technologies beyond your understanding. We were on the brink of creating a weapon that could protect all races, a weapon that could end wars, bring peace to the galaxy." Jack listened intently, trying to wrap his mind around what she was saying. A weapon? Peace? It sounded too far-fetched to be true. "But," Vera continued, her eyes darkening, "our enemies, the Xanar, they saw us as a threat. They feared our power, and they feared what we might do with it. They attacked without warning, and they destroyed us. Our cities, our ships, our people, they were wiped out in a matter of days. Only a few of us escaped, scattered across the universe, and I was one of the last survivors." Jack's throat tightened. He hadn't realized the depth of the situation. This wasn't just a simple fight for survival. This was about an entire species on the brink of extinction. Vera's voice wavered slightly as she spoke again. "But I was different. I was chosen to protect the secret of the Sreath. I was the last of the warriors trained to wield the weapon, one so powerful that it could destroy entire fleets or bring about peace. My people hid it from the Xanar, and they hid me as well. I'm the key to unlocking it." Jack stepped closer, his mind reeling. "But how? How does it work?" Vera's eyes glinted with a mixture of pain and resolve. "The weapon is not a physical object. It's a part of our DNA. It's coded into our very being. But only someone with the bloodline of the Sreath can activate it. I was created to carry that knowledge, to protect the weapon from those who would misuse it." Jack's stomach churned. The weight of what she was saying was sinking in. Vera wasn't just a warrior. She was the last hope for her people, and for the entire galaxy. "The Xanar want me alive," she continued, "but not for the reasons you think. They want me because I hold the key to their ultimate weapon, one they plan to use to conquer the galaxy, to destroy all who stand in their way. And they know that if I die, the weapon dies with me." Jack clenched his fists, his mind spinning. "So these hunters, they're the Xanar?" Vera nodded. "Yes, they are their elite soldiers, bred to track down and eliminate anyone who threatens their rule. They've been hunting me for years, and now they're getting closer. They won't stop until I'm dead or captured." Jack's thoughts raced. The danger wasn't just about surviving anymore, it was about stopping the Xanar from getting their hands on the weapon. The stakes had risen, and now he was in the middle of something far bigger than himself. "So what now?" Jack asked, his voice steady. "How do we stop them?" Vera's expression softened, but there was a determined fire in her eyes. "We have to reach the heart of the Sreath, a place hidden deep in the galaxy. The weapon is there, locked away. If we get there first, we can stop the Xanar from using it." Jack looked at her, trying to digest the enormity of her words. This wasn't just a fight for survival anymore, it was a fight for the fate of the entire galaxy. "We can't do it alone," Vera continued, her voice low but resolute. "But with you by my side, we stand a chance." Jack didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, something inside him clicked. He wasn't just helping her survive. He was helping her save everything, and he wasn't going to let the Xanar win. "Then let's go," Jack said, his voice full of determination. "Where do we start?" Vera looked at him with a mix of gratitude and trust. "We leave tonight. We need to move quickly, and we need to stay ahead of them. The Xanar have eyes everywhere. As they prepared to leave the hidden base, Jack knew that the road ahead would be fraught with danger. But one thing was certain: he wasn't just following orders anymore. This was bigger than survival. This was about ensuring the survival of something far more important, a future worth fighting for. And Jack was ready to face whatever came next. The night had fallen quiet again, but Jack couldn't shake the tension in the air. His footsteps echoed in the narrow corridor of the hidden base as he paced, his mind restless, running over everything Vera had told him. The weight of her words hung heavily on his chest, but there was one thing that kept bothering him, a nagging feeling that something wasn't quite right. They had set off at dusk, following Vera's directions toward the heart of the Sreeth's last hope, but the deeper they ventured into unknown territory, the more Jack began to feel that all wasn't as it seemed. Vera had been helpful, her guidance unwavering, but there were moments when she looked at him with a strange intensity, almost as if she was waiting for something. Jack stopped, rubbing his temples. He was no fool. There was something else here. Something hidden beneath the surface. Something Vera wasn't telling him. He glanced back at her, sitting on the floor near the dim glow of the base's console. Her face, usually so stoic, now seemed guarded, as if she was battling something within herself. Jack approached her cautiously, his instincts kicking in. "Vera," he said, his voice steady but firm. "You've been distant. I can feel it. What aren't you telling me?" Vera's eyes flickered up to meet his, her expression unreadable. For a long moment, she said nothing, her gaze shifting toward the entrance, where shadows danced against the walls. "I told you everything you needed to know," she finally said, her voice cold, though Jack could hear the slight tremor beneath the surface. "You know what's at stake. You know the Xanar are after us." Jack stepped closer, frustration beginning to rise in his chest. "No, I don't just know that. I know you're hiding something. I've been watching you, Vera. You're not just running from the Xanar. You're hiding from something else. And I need to know what it is." Her eyes narrowed, but Jack could see the guilt flash in them for a split second. She stood up quickly, her posture stiff and defensive. "I don't have time for your questions," she snapped. "We need to focus on surviving, not on digging through my past." Jack's patience thinned. "You're putting us both at risk, and I won't let you do that again. We're in this together, and I need to know everything." For a moment, there was silence, heavy, thick, and charged with tension. Vera closed her eyes, as if searching for the right words, but when she opened them again, there was something cold in her gaze, something Jack had never seen before. "You don't understand, Jack," she said quietly, her voice now devoid of emotion. "I wasn't just chosen to protect the weapon. I was chosen to ensure it never saw the light of day. I was the one who was meant to destroy it." Jack blinked in confusion, his mind struggling to grasp the enormity of her words. What do you mean, destroy it? You've been running to protect it, to make sure it's safe. What's changed?" Vera didn't answer right away. She turned her back to him, her face hard, as if she was wrestling with her own demons. Finally, she spoke again, her words carrying a weight Jack wasn't ready for. "I betrayed my people," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "The weapon wasn't meant to save the galaxy. It was designed to enslave it. I didn't agree with their plan, so I destroyed it. I scattered the pieces across the galaxy, erased all traces of its existence. The Sreeth were wrong to believe that weapon could bring peace. It was never meant for peace. It was meant for control." Jack felt as though the floor had dropped out from under him. His mind reeled, trying to piece together what she was saying. "So all this time, you've been lying to me?" His voice trembled with disbelief. "You told me you were the key to saving your people, and now you're saying you destroyed the weapon? You've been leading me on a wild goose chase?" Vera's expression hardened. "I didn't lead you anywhere. I was trying to protect you. The Xanar don't just want to find the weapon, they want to force me to rebuild It. I've been hiding from them because they'll kill anyone who gets in their way. I didn't know how to tell you, Jack. I didn't want to drag you into this mess. Jack stood there, his head spinning. The betrayal stung deeper than anything he'd experienced. He had trusted her, believed in her cause, but now everything was turned upside down. Was she even telling the truth? Could she be trusted? His fists clenched. So you're telling me the whole time we've been running from the Xanar, they weren't just after a weapon. They were after you, after what you've destroyed. Vera nodded, her eyes filled with regret. Yes, I couldn't let them have it, but now, they'll stop at nothing to get it back. I can't hide forever. Jack's mind raced. He felt a surge of anger mixed with disbelief. He had been so focused on the mission, so caught up in the idea that he was fighting for something bigger than himself. But now it seemed like he had been a pawn in a game he didn't fully understand. He turned away, trying to steady himself. The weight of the betrayal was almost suffocating, but then something in him shifted. He wasn't just going to walk away. He couldn't. I didn't sign up for this, Jack said, his voice low but determined. But if the Xanar want you, then they'll have to go through me. Whatever your past is, whatever you've done, it doesn't matter now. We stop them or we die trying. That's the only option. Vera stood in silence for a moment, then slowly nodded, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered. I never wanted to put you in danger. Jack met her gaze. We're in this together. And right now, we're the only chance this galaxy has. The silence between them was thick, but Jack's resolve was clear. They might not trust each other completely yet, but they were bound by one thing now, survival, and the Xanar wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted. But Jack wasn't going to let that happen, not without a fight. The wind howled outside the crumbling walls of their temporary hideout, a forgotten military installation hidden deep within the rocky desert. The weight of betrayal still hung in the air like a suffocating fog, but Jack had no time for doubt. He had accepted that survival wasn't about simple choices anymore. It was about confronting the past, no matter how dark or twisted it had become. And in that moment, standing beside Vera, Jack understood something profound. This wasn't just a fight for survival. This was a fight for redemption for her, for him, and for a galaxy on the brink of destruction. The stillness in the room was broken by the faint hum of old machinery, a sign that the hidden base, though ancient, still had life in it. The flickering lights cast long shadows against the walls, adding to the oppressive atmosphere. Jack leaned against the rusted metal desk, staring out into the desolate landscape, his thoughts racing. Vera, still weakened from their long journey, sat on the floor near a cracked terminal. Her face was shadowed by guilt, her eyes dark and distant. She had never fully explained the depth of her past, but Jack knew that the burden she carried was heavier than anything he could understand. She wasn't just a warrior. She was the last of her people, and the weapon she had destroyed wasn't just a tool, it was a symbol of her people's lost legacy. A legacy she had chosen to protect, even at the cost of her own soul. As Jack looked at her, something inside him stirred. He had been angry at first, betrayed by the very person he'd put his trust in. But now, as the reality of their situation settled in, he realized that they were both running from something far greater than just the Xanar. We need to make a stand, Jack said, his voice low but firm. The words felt heavy in the air, but they were the truth. The Xanar will stop at nothing to find you, to find what you destroyed. We can't just run forever. Vera didn't respond at first. She simply stared at the floor, her fingers brushing over the worn-out console in front of her. Jack could feel the weight of her indecision, but he refused to let it drag them down. We don't have the luxury of time, Jack continued, his voice hardening. The Xanar aren't going to wait for us to figure things out. They'll come, and they'll come fast. We either take the fight to them or become their prey. Her eyes flickered up to meet his, the fire in them reigniting. You don't understand, she whispered. I can't ask you to fight for something you don't believe in, the weapon. It wasn't just a weapon. It was an embodiment of everything my people stood for: control, domination. I destroyed it because I couldn't let that happen. But now, they'll use me to rebuild it. They'll make me create something that could tear apart the very fabric of this galaxy. Jack took a step closer, his gaze unwavering. And you think you're the only one who has something to redeem? I've seen what happens when people are pushed too far, when they run from their past instead of confronting it. I've seen good men die for nothing. But I'm not letting that happen to you, not on my watch. Vera's face softened, her eyes searching his. There was something vulnerable in her expression, now something she hadn't shown before. Her shoulders seemed to slump with exhaustion, and for the first time, Jack saw just how much weight she was carrying. I've already lost so much, she said, her voice breaking slightly. I've lost my people. I've lost everything I thought I was fighting for. And now I'm asking you to risk your life for something I destroyed. I don't deserve your help, Jack. Jack shook his head, his voice resolute. No, you don't. Get to decide that. I choose to help you. I'm not doing it for your people or your past. I'm doing it because you're here now. Because you're still fighting. And if that's enough for me to believe in, then that's enough for us to fight together. For a long moment, there was only silence. The weight of the conversation lingered between them like an unspoken bond. And then slowly, Vera stood up, her movement stiff but determined. You're right, she said quietly, her voice now filled with purpose. We're not running anymore. I'm not running anymore. If I'm going to face the consequences of my actions, I will do it on my own terms. I'll fight for what I believe in now, what's left of it. But I can't do it alone. Jack nodded. His eyes locked on hers. Then we're in this together. All the way. Vera stepped closer, her gaze softening for a brief moment, before the fire returned to her eyes. We have one chance to stop them. One chance to stop the Xenar and everything they want to use me for. If we fail, this galaxy will fall. And I won't let that happen. Jack placed a hand on her shoulder, steadying her. Then let's make sure we don't fail. Outside, the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, casting long shadows across the desert. It was a new day, a day that would mark the beginning of a battle. Neither of them could afford to lose. They weren't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting for redemption, for a second chance, for a future that had not yet been written. And they would fight with everything they had left, together. The first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, casting a cold, golden light over the barren wasteland. The once desolate silence of the desert now felt like the calm before the storm. Jack stood at the edge of the cliff, his eyes scanning the landscape below, watching for any sign of movement. His breath was steady, but his heart was racing. The battle they had fought so hard to avoid was now inevitable. Vera stood beside him, her face grim but resolute. Her once fragile body had transformed. Over the course of their journey, she was no longer just the alien warrior haunted by the ghosts of her past. She had become the leader she never thought she could be, the only hope of stopping the Xenar from conquering everything. We can't afford to fail, Jack said, his voice steady, though his mind screamed with anxiety. We stop them here, or they win. Vera turned her gaze to him, her eyes filled with fire, her grip tightening around the hilt of the weapon she had recovered, an ancient, ceremonial blade from her people's past. It was more than a weapon now. It was a symbol of everything they were fighting for. We won't fail, she said, her voice hard and final. If we do, the galaxy falls. But if we win, we stop their tyranny once and for all. The tension In the air thickened as the distant rumble of engines vibrated through the ground. Jack's ears pricked as the sound grew louder, closer. They were coming. The Xanar were here, with their mechanized hunters, their elite soldiers, and their unrelenting thirst for conquest. "We don't have much time," Jack muttered, his hand instinctively reaching for the rifle slung over his shoulder. The weapons they'd gathered would never be enough to take on the full force of the Xanar army, but they had no choice now. This was their stand. Vera turned to face him, her expression steely. "We'll fight with everything we have. Together, we can turn the tide. But I need you to trust me, Jack. This isn't just about stopping them. It's about what comes next." Jack frowned. "What do you mean?" She looked down at the weapon in her hands, her grip tightening. "The Xanar aren't just after me anymore. They're after the power of the Sreath, the legacy of my people. If they gain control of what I've hidden, we're all doomed. They'll reshape the galaxy in their image, a galaxy that will bow to them or perish." The ground beneath them rumbled again, this time followed by the unmistakable sound of heavy footsteps. A small army of Xanar soldiers, with their sleek, deadly armor, appeared on the horizon, hundreds strong, advancing swiftly and relentlessly. Jack's grip tightened on his weapon. He wasn't sure how much longer they could hold out, but he knew one thing. This was their last shot. The Xanar's lead commander, a towering figure clad in black armor, led the charge. His cold, red eyes locked onto Vera as they approached, a sinister grin creeping onto his face. The moment his forces reached the base, it would be over. "Vera," Jack said, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his gut. "It's now or never. We fight, and we fight hard." Vera nodded without a word, her eyes fierce. She raised the blade, her movements graceful yet filled with purpose. "We won't just survive. We'll make them regret ever coming here." The first wave of Xanar soldiers charged, their weapons raised and energy shields crackling in the desert heat. Jack and Vera took their positions, Jack in the front with his rifle, Vera behind with the ceremonial blade, though she wielded it like a true warrior. She was no longer just the last of her kind. She was a symbol of hope. As the first Xanar soldier neared, Jack fired, taking him down with precise aim. The others hesitated for a split second before launching their assault. The sound of energy blasts filled the air, cutting through the still morning like a deadly storm. Vera moved like a blur, her blade flashing in the sunlight as she took down Xanar soldiers one by one, her speed and precision unmatched. Each strike was a testament to her determination, to her purpose, but the Xanar were relentless, and their numbers were overwhelming. Jack gritted his teeth, firing his weapon again and again, each shot taking down a soldier, but more kept coming. The battle was like a raging storm, chaotic, furious, and unyielding. Vera's eyes flashed with determination as she cut through another soldier, her body moving in perfect harmony with the blade. But even she knew they couldn't hold out forever. The Xanar were too numerous, and their technology far surpassed anything the Sreath had ever built. "Jack!" Vera shouted, her voice cutting through the noise of battle. "We need to destroy their command center. Take down their leader." Jack nodded. He knew what had to be done. With a final glance at Vera, he turned and charged forward, cutting a path through the Xanar soldiers. He wasn't going to let them win, not now, not after everything they'd been through. He reached the lead commander, his massive figure towering over the battlefield. The Xanar commander sneered as Jack approached, raising his weapon to strike. "You think you can stop us?" The commander growled, his voice as cold as the steel of his armor. Jack's lips curled into a grim smile. "I don't think. I know." With a roar, Jack lunged forward, taking the commander by surprise. The two clashed in a flurry of sparks and metal, the sound of their battle echoing over the desert. The Xanar commander fought with brutal efficiency, but Jack was driven by something stronger: desperation, survival. and the need to protect everything he had come to believe in. In the midst of their struggle, Jack spotted the base's central control panel, exactly where Vera had said it would be. He gritted his teeth, shoving the Xenar commander back, and made a mad dash toward the control panel. With one final push, Jack slammed his fist into the panel, sending a shockwave of energy through the base. The Xenar forces staggered, their command center systems shutting down. The tide of the battle shifted. Vera, seeing the opportunity, charged into the fray, her blade gleaming as she fought her way through the disoriented Xenar soldiers. Jack wasn't sure if it was the damage to the command center or the sheer willpower of their combined effort, but suddenly, the momentum was on their side. With one last push, the Xenar commander fell to the ground, defeated. Jack stood over him, breathing heavily, as the remaining Xenar soldiers began to retreat. The battlefield fell silent. The victory was hard won, but it was theirs. As Jack turned to find Vera, he saw her standing among the wreckage, her eyes locked on him. She was bruised, bloodied, but unbroken. They had done it. They had stopped the Xenar. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. The galaxy was scarred, but now, for the first time in what felt like forever, there was hope. And together, they would rebuild.